Hello everyone, welcome back to Train Simulator 2020 as we're back here on Donner Pass, continuing to modernize the route. I'm going to feel a little bit rusty on doing this, so bear with me here. And this episode was also kind of a mess as well. To give you an idea of the time spent on all of the footage that you see here, I think it totals up to about 5 hours and 20 minutes, and that includes even getting the cinematic shots at the end of the video. So this all the footage kind of spanned over about 3 days, technically 4 days, but one of the days I wound up not being able to get on to do some route editing. But in total is about 3 days of total editing for this little area here just outside of Sparks' yard. And this was a very messy area to begin with, or at least in my mind. I had a visual of what I wanted done in this area, but the prop selection was not allowing me to do that, and a lot of other things kind of added together really to not make this maybe the greatest area. Now I will say, looking at it at the very end, I actually really liked the result, but I am gonna have to take a lot of time outside of camera time to perfect really the area and add some more smaller details. You guys will see as we get there. But anyways, I started with placing some buildings down just to get a feel of this area. You can see I did a little bit of kit bashing, is what a lot of the modelers would call it. And so I just kind of took a lot of assets, or I took one of the same assets and combined them together to create some bigger ones and such. So yeah, this area was a bit confusing, partly because it's an area I'm not used to seeing. I don't live around an area like this. So what do I mean by that? Well, this area, there's a lot of businesses nearby. You can even see from the Google Map overlay, you could see the property lines, how they're divided and such, with fences and things like that. But it's divided between these small individual property sections of houses, and then you have like a business right next to it. And like I said, I don't know of many areas that are like that. And it's in this grid, it's all packed with, again, there's some residential houses, and then there's these businesses and these big buildings. So it was a really odd area to replicate. And I also feel like I maybe went too far out really replicating a lot of the things that you see here, because it's not that close to the track, so it doesn't need that much detail. But I was like, well, heck with it, I'm already getting carried away, so we might as well get carried away and detail the area. So you guys will probably notice there's a lot of these clipping portions. Oh, here's something I want to talk about. Here's a good example of kit bashing and making things work. The building that's there on Google Map overlay, you could see it's the side of it is like cut in an angle. And thankfully this prop exists. I think it was from the Chicago line, so I just did some scaling things. Sometimes the scaling doesn't work, because you can see on the other side there's a bunch of those loading docks for semi-trucks, and you'll see later on when I put semi-trucks trailers there, they don't match up to the door. So sometimes resizing doesn't work, but no one's going to really notice that detail. But anyways, like I was saying, a lot of these times where I'm clipping, it's because I've spent a good 5 minutes clicking through props and clicking through the lists of buildings and scenery and such, and it got so annoying, and it came down to being a memory game. Being able to remember, okay, what prop was what in the list? Like, can I picture the prop before clicking on it in the list? And this is where I wish, and I hope maybe someone from Dovetail Games listens and they can do this, but they need to add an option where you can type and search for a prop or an asset or a spline or anything like that like you should be able to search for that, like type in tractor and get a bunch of props that have the word tractor in it, and you have a smaller list of things to choose from. It would just make it easier, really, and it would take a lot less time to go through it. Yeah, there's a lot of things like warehouses and such where you get warehouse 01, warehouse 02, like you saw just there. You have things like that, industrial block 1, industrial block 2. So sometimes that can be a little bit harder to determine what prop you're going to be getting and placing down. However, you can at least narrow down your searches and have, smaller choices, of things to choose from. Like I said, like even when it comes down to like buildings or even sheds, like I know from the Chicago line and I know from the Montana High Line route that if you type in shed, you'll get a lot of different variants of sheds and a lot of different variants of buildings as well. So something I wish that the editor had, and had that option to search for props. I know there is an option to click and view the props and view what they look like, but sometimes that isn't the greatest method or tool to be searching for props or deciding if the props work, because you don't get a scale option for that. Like, yeah, you may see that prop, but you don't have a reference for size, so it doesn't matter if there's that option to visually see the prop in the editor. I would just like to have a search feature to make things a little bit easier as well. So we're working on this portion here. Like I said, it's just a lot of skipping around. It's a mess, and I have a hard time dedicating myself to one location, like especially with these splines, or there might be props I might pick up that work in this area, but then in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, in an area I just worked in, that prop could work, really well for that place too. So nothing's really, it's not ordered, it's kind of a mess, but I guess it gets the job done. It doesn't really matter. This is an area I got a little bit more kind of, that was my feeling right there. I was just kind of upset about, but you can see I'm working on these fences here, and I believe there are these fence gates that do open and close for the tracks, and Stevens Pass had an excellent prop of opening and closing fence gates for the tracks, and apparently that does not exist in the Montana, Chicago, or any other route. So that was a little bit depressing to know that there are a lot of good props from the Stevens Pass route. And again, I'm not using it because I want more people to access this route. I want everyone in the world to be able to use this route, even if it requires you to go to Railworks America to download this, or some other site, which I'll talk about here in a bit, to download this route and to get it, because it's using Railworks America Community Asset Project assets. And well, yeah, that's kind of the big reason why I can't put it up on the workshop. Someone did remind me about that in the last video and commented, and I appreciate that you cannot. I mean, you maybe could. I think that's something I'll have to maybe message Dovetail Games and see if I can get around it, if they can aid us in that. But yeah, any third-party content that's not official through Dovetail Games, you can't upload through the workshop. And I'm using, like I said, that Railworks America Community Asset Pack, so that would mean I can't upload this to the Steam workshop, which again is a bummer, because that's the easiest way for people to access it. But we'll figure it out when we get to that time. So yeah, okay, so when you see the black fade transitions like you did a minute ago, that means that was a new day, and that was a new video segment. So this is day 2 currently of me working on the Sparks area. There's a little casino. Well, I wouldn't say little, there's some pretty big buildings there. There's a casino over there. And I know there's not a parking garage there in between those two buildings, but that parking garage asset looked really nice, so I decided to use that. And yeah, I really don't know what else to talk about. Yeah, here's another area where I wasn't sure what type of buildings to use. Like, you can see I'm using these storefront buildings because it seems like there's a lot of businesses there. Again, it bugs me because it's not exact to what the Google Map overlay shows, but you just have to carry on and do your best you can. I mean, like I said, at the end of the day, like 90% of the routes that are on Train Simulator aren't this detailed. So I guess you can say I'm spoiling the community by detailing the heck out of this. Like I said, I watch Approach Medium. He does the trains builds and such. He does a lot of route building for that. And I think I'm exactly the same as him. Like, I don't get my ideas from him, but we have the same thinking of details, and we have the same thinking of being exact, really. We want to just, make things look realistic, make things look lifelike. We don't want to make the route look dead and make the route look like it's been just a copy and paste of buildings. We want to make it look like something. We want to make it look like the real thing, whether it's a real route or a fantasy route. So that's how I felt about this area, was that it was either too repetitive or maybe too much of a variance, but also in the fact that maybe there wasn't enough, because you'll even see in the cinematics at the end, yeah, I did a lot, I changed a lot, it's completely different from the base original route, but it could still use a lot more details. It could use some road signs, which I have yet to put. It needs some telephone poles, and needs some light poles and things like that for the roads. And it might even need more bushes and shrubs and things like that, or fences like this. So I don't know really how far to go and where to stop. My limitation is going to be to keep in the back of my mind that you pretty much need a high-end computer to run this route, for as many assets and things that I'm doing to it. So that's kind of my limit. Like, if I feel like I'm overloading this area with props, that might be a good sign, to tell me, hey, I don't think a lot of people will be able to, get through this area cleanly, without dropping frames a lot. So that's always in the back of my mind when I'm doing things. Here's something else I like to complain about really with the editor, and that's the grid. And I wish the grid was broken up into smaller squares, because you got things like this where painting is a pain. Like, yeah, you can click a lot, like you saw me, back in that little facility there, or even right here, like I'm clicking, and that changed the brush speed and things like that, and that helps make it a little bit more precise, but I still wish the grid was a little bit smaller. And I wish there was more options too for paints and things like that, because sometimes that would really make a route pop out. I know Trains has a lot of options for painting. You can even spin the paint tool, so it's not like this where the paint's stuck on this grid. You get some variance in the paint. So, but a lot of those things will not change, so just gotta just adapt to it, really. And I've been doing a good job with that. I really enjoy, still, again, at the end of the day, it's still better than not even half, again, like I said, 90% of the routes that are released on this sim. So yeah, I'm still impressed with it either way, and still happy with it. Again, you can't go wrong. I mean, you can go wrong in thinking that you have to be exact to the real world. That's when you're doing something wrong. But if you're having fun and just kind of, doing whatever in an area, but, making it look realistic, then, that should be your end goal, really, at the end of the day. I know I was going to... See, when I'm editing these videos, I also have in the back of my mind what I'm going to talk about at these moments, because I don't want to be stumbling over in my thoughts trying to figure out what the heck am I going to talk about in this area. I know I was going to mention about the paints as well. I never know if painting should be the first thing I do, it should be the middle thing I do, or the last thing I do. I never really know what to do with that, so I guess it's just going to be experimenting. I like doing it after I've done the buildings, because again, I'm not being exact to Google Maps. If I was exact to Google Maps, then maybe I would do the painting first. The painting might actually be more important when we get to like foresty areas and get to the mountain areas. But as far as I'm concerned, I kind of like how I did the painting after I did the buildings, since I'm, like I said, might not be putting all the buildings down that are exact to the Google Map overlay. So you can see again in that area, worked on a bit more buildings, and you can see here I'm using my lovely sidewalk spline, I should say. Again, it just creates some depth to the map that I really like and enjoy. So just adds another third dimension to it, makes things pop out. So, but yeah, you could see there, I was putting some cars down. You see I put some very generic cars that are parked. Like I said, just doesn't need to be fancy. It's just kind of off to the corner of your eye, you know, really as you're going through here. Put some guardrails there at the end of the road. Again, just, you know, some little touches there. There are a lot of roads or corners like that where there are guardrails. I do need to find, and that goes back to my thing about signs, I do need to find some like chevron angle signs or turn signs and things like that. Like I said, the area is not done. I still need to add a lot to it. So I'll be sure, you know, when I get to, you know, feeling like, hey, I need to put signs down, then I'll do that, and I'll do street lamps and things like that, which will be its own separate video. I think this is episode 8. By episode 10, I want to do a special video, and I think it's going to be a nighttime route editor, so I'm going to set the time to midnight or something like that, or set it to some cool looking, you know, time with the skybox, and do a bunch of telephone poles, or not telephone poles, but you get it, like the road lights, you know, road lamps, and light up the area, and do some cool lighting things as well. It's something that this route needs to have more of. The one thing I didn't like was some of the nightlight stuff, because it was just like the generic invisible lights, and it would light up in a certain area, but sometimes you get the best lighting from the individual light poles and things like that. So I'll be sure to do a special on that. So there you go. If you watched 18 minutes now into the video and you heard that, there you go. You have something to look forward to, and tell everyone and spread the word about the series. I guess I will say that right now before I continue on talking about this, is that, again, I appreciate all the people that are into this build and into this series, and please keep spreading the word about this, because I want people to know about this and, you know, get some excitement, really. At the end of the day, yeah, it's partly because I want the views on the channel. I want the channel to grow and, you know, maybe make, you know, a living off of doing YouTube. But at the same time, this route does deserve an update, and I think people do deserve better for Train Simulator. Dovetail Games, I don't think, has been doing too great of a job, really. I mean, they've been doing some good things. They've been improving. They've been doing a lot of improvements. But this route in particular is so outdated. It's not really their fault, really. But I think it's about time it got an update. So anyways, you saw I worked on that little facility back there. There's a bunch of tractors and the front end loaders and such. That was a cool area, again, to work at. Here's another area, it's easy for me to say, where I had started working on that little property line and had found a bunch of props, and then in the back of my mind I was like, hey, this, you know, little prop would work in this area. So again, it's just a lot of jumping around. I know for the videos, it doesn't make the videos look pretty because, again, this is a speed build and things are going by quickly. So, you know, if you look away for a second, you know, and come back, you might easily lose track of where I'm at because I'm just jumping around. But yeah, here's another area where it's not, I don't know, I just got creative with it. Like, you can't really see from Street View or from Google Map Overlay or even going to Google Maps, because I usually have Google Maps as a separate tab open just to, you know, go back to. Again, you just gotta be creative with that area. You're not gonna be exact. I just kind of think of it as maybe there's a house there's a building, and maybe, it got torn down or something. Or maybe, it's just a, piece of property where, some company's putting their junk for the time being and things like that. So yeah, and like I said, it starts to look better because of this, because I start putting trees down, I start putting bushes down. I do want to add some, more bushes, more things around, signs, detail, again, just to make things pop out and look more realistic. Especially with these trees, like I want to put bushes around the trees or edge out these property lines with like bushes and like grass lines and things like that, because even the trees aren't enough to detail these areas. Like one thing I don't like about these trees is that I feel like the base of the trees are like really tall. Like it takes a long time. Like there's a lot of distance from the bottom of the ground to when you start to get branches and you start to get leaves. A lot of trees aren't like that. There are some low hanging branches and leaves and things like that. So I'm gonna definitely add some bushes to, again, add some depth to it, some detail. Put some pine trees down because I know in a earlier episode, hey, we're going to day 3 here. I know in an earlier episode, I had mentioned it was unrealistic that Reno didn't really have snow, but it wasn't until I searched up YouTube videos when I realized, it does snow in Reno. So I added some pine trees, because I know if people want to do a winter scenario on Donner Pass, you gotta add some pine trees at least, because, of the climate and whatnot. That is a good question as well. I know there's a few people who do live up in this area as well. Let me know if it does snow often in Reno, and if it does, or not necessarily snows, but if the climate's cooler, and you do get, all the seasons. I know in the mountains you will, but, especially in, I don't know the elevation, for Reno, but I will definitely add more pine trees then, if that's the case. So that way, if you are doing winter scenarios, at least it doesn't look like everything's dead. You have some, trees and whatnot. So yeah, that's that. So this was a prop I had randomly found a while ago, and this is like this texture prop, like concrete texture prop. And I decided to use it above this spline here, to edge out like where this building is and the road is and such. And at first I really liked it, but then as you saw back there when I had flown further away from it, like it disappears. I don't know, it's not perfect, but I do like how you can edit it. You can change the size of it as well, and it doesn't have a prop detail number as well. Like it will, even if you're at the lowest detail setting, it will still show up, which is pretty cool. So I kind of edged it out with some bushes, and I think that made it look a lot better. So, and again, added some more trees as well. A lot of this, again, you probably saw and noticed that I cut out a lot of repetition of putting down props, especially the trees as well. Again, it's just kind of to make these videos quicker. Even though this turned out to be a 40-minute, 30-minute video. I don't know how long it turned out to be. Just make it quick and just get the point across, of what I did. Here's another area where wasn't really sure what to do. So this is again right next to the tracks, as you saw, and on Google Maps it looks like these businesses are still pretty active. Like it seems like that road is used for, truckloads of whatever, going to and from these businesses, and it even does seem like, there are people that, there are office spaces, or people working in these buildings and whatnot. I took my own little, what did I do here? Oh, I did some more painting there as well. That really popped out the area, just adding some green to it so it didn't look dead in the area, so that helps sometimes. But yeah, even here I had to be really creative. It looks nothing like the overlay, it looks nothing like Google Maps, but I just kind of did my own twist on making it look like it's an official front of a building, so if, some building inspector to come in, or they're checking their office, or they had visitors, at least it looks presentable. That's what it seemed like. That's kind of the vibe I got when I looked at this area in Google Maps. So I tried doing that, just made it look, presentable, by the tracks. I might change that asphalt color. I think it was a little bit too dark. Yeah, I like that one there. I might replicate that over there. We'll see. Might keep it not. Actually, yeah, I tried to do it, but then I was like, nah, I don't like it. I don't know. There needs to be a shade in between. That works. Yep, here's another area. You could see there the loading docks do not line up with the trailers at all. So again, I don't think anyone's going to care or see that because that's on the other side of the building. And if you're worrying about driving the trains on that other side, you're not going to tell. And so again, that's kind of in the back of my mind. And this thought process is really, is it worth detailing a lot of this stuff? Yeah, like the fronts, things that you're going to see from the tracks, you should detail a lot. But things that are hidden, things from behind, don't really need a lot of detail, so it doesn't really matter. And here we go. Here's my favorite part of this entire video is working on this little scrapyard. I think this was one of the only areas on the original map that actually had some activities here, or it wasn't activities, but I think you had the animated diggers here located as well, and it was like a little, scrapyard. I do add 2 of those diggers back because I really liked those, and the animation of those. They got annoying because their sounds were very constant, and the sound it gave off was just annoying. It was annoying in the editor too because when you pull it up, you hear the sound, but those just really made this scrapyard, feel realistic, feel like it was alive, and there were people there at the scrapyard and working and things like that. But you guys will see it here when it gets completed. But again, it was just being creative. Like you can see, I don't have the Google Map overlay pulled up. I just knew that this was going to be a scrapyard, so it was just find all the junk that you can find in the in the assets list, and just go ham on it. You can see here, I really love these little details again from the Chicago route. You got little individual buckets, you got the arms as well, so it makes it look like maybe they go through a few of those as they're digging and working on it. Then you got more of these bigger junkyard props. And again, I was just finding a bunch of clutter. And again, this is where it took longer than I think it needed to be, because at first, I didn't know what I was searching for. Like I didn't know what props, would replicate, maybe junk or scrap. But again, at the same time, it would be nice if there's a search tool to search for props, because again, I'm using several different routes. I'm using Montana Highline, I'm using Chicago, I'm using Pacific Surfliner, and I don't want to be scrolling through this long list of props and assets, to be getting to, what I want to find, what I want to get, whatever it may be. So again, it's just something I, wish I had, but overall really happy at how this area turned out. Again, even just from here, it's not completed. There's still a few more minutes left on stuff I did, but it just more detail brings so much life out. I dare you to go to the original route, then come back to this, and I've put more detail to it than the base route. And I get it, the base route doesn't have so many assets, but and they probably didn't take so much time, but at least I'm taking the time to build it and make it look good. Again, I feel bad for those with low-end PCs because you probably can't use this, or it's gonna be a lot on your PC, but I'll do my best and see what we do from here on out. Here's another thing Stephen's Pass had that I wish was in the other packs, and that was some of these loading docks kind of thing, or platforms. Like the only platforms that exist are the passenger platforms, but there were no platforms in any of the assets that I'm using that were like utility platforms and things like that. I know Stevens Pass had a few because it had a lot of businesses along the rails that needed that. So. But that's going to be it. This episode is wrapping up here shortly. Again, thank you again for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to subscribe, like the video, comment down below any suggestions you might have. And yeah, I'll be sure in the next episode to talk about more because I know I didn't cover a lot of things like, how I'm going to get this route to people and such like that. But with that, I'm going to shut up. Enjoy the cinematics. Again, thank you again for watching. I hope you all are staying safe, staying healthy. And I'll see you guys for episode 9 of Modernizing Donner Pass.